Okay, so we're going to start this journey with the heart of the matter, the data sources. On each table, there should be slides of data. I think it's really important to walk away with color slides so that you can see the comparisons, and you're just going to follow along with me, but there's some really astounding information that we need to look at. And then there's another data slide that's near the end that's not in here. I apologize, I didn't put that in until after I had sent this out to be printed. So thank you so much. Okay, everyone knows about Healthy People 2020. Who does not know about Healthy People 2020? Okay, all right. Well, if you will go on the Centers for Disease Control website, you will learn that the federal government has put together a standard around what the priorities are. These are the two priorities: the elimination of health disparities and to reduce infant mortality to 4.5 deaths per live 1,000 births. That says, that's perfect. We could do that. But when we start looking at the infant mortality crisis in the African American community, or looking at it racially, we recognize that we have a long way to go. Excuse me. Also, what I wanted to say about the Healthy People 2020, it really is the second tier of Healthy People 2010. And there are actually 28, I believe there's 28 areas to really measure and look at. I don't know the whole list. I'm just really focusing in on infant mortality, but I think it's really interesting to take a look at all of the areas that converge in the work that you do so that you can start tying in that data that talks about Healthy People 2020. But I think what's really important here is that our collaborations over the last 10 years have really served as a concrete response to Healthy People 2010. And because what we've been able to do is to put together a call to action. We're going to look at the African American infant mortality rate across the board, no matter what year, no matter what service planning area, is just off the chart. And so when I look at this, 4.5 deaths per live and 1,000 births, we have a long way to go. And I think to look at and to care for the psyche of women, and particularly Dr. Dossett, as you, because you work with Deborah Johnson, who's also a part of our board, it's really important to look at the mental health of women and the perinatal depression, because for African American women, it goes unchecked. So when it goes unchecked, and you already know that data, but for us, looking at on the heels of what Dr. Wyatt had put together, it causes us to be crazy. And I'm just going to say that it causes us to be crazy. So by the time that we're 40 years old, not only are we maturing and our bodies are beginning to give signals of, oh, you know, I need to wear glasses, I need to wear bifocals, you know, or our hair starts falling out and we don't quite know why. Or we start gaining weight and we don't really know why. And we start doing all kinds of things. But today, women are diagnosed, African American women are diagnosed with that stress and chronic disease, and we are dying young. So we're faced with the strategy of our babies are dying and we're dying young. So there's something going on with us. And so I really appreciate the fact that to care for women in our community, but particularly to care for African American women, that is our call to action around this work. Okay, here's the fun part. Today, I tried to get the data that was going to be released today, but they didn't give it to me. So you're getting data that is based on 2007, and I'm trying not to trip over here. So when we look at Los Angeles County, what I like to say is that Los Angeles County, if we were a state, we would be the 8th largest state in the nation. We have 8 service planning areas, and if you look at this chart here, I'm not as comfortable using this pointer because I don't use it all the time. Okay, so, but what I want to show you is that in the, you're from Northridge, right? Okay, All right, so that's San Fernando. But nonetheless, if you look at the Antelope Valley and you look at South Los Angeles, those two spas or service planning areas are on the charts for the health department. And that's because the infant mortality rate is extremely high there. So when we pull this up again and we look at that, there are a lot of fetal, when I say, I don't even want to look at what the number is going to increase to be. There are a lot of fetal and infant deaths. And on our board, we have the fetal and infant mortality review director, and she has the relationship with the coroner. And I'm trying not to tear up to say this. I don't want, that just blows me away that she knows of every infant death that happens in our county because she gets to read the coroner report. And what's really interesting about the Antelope Valley in Los Angeles, South Los Angeles, is that a lot of these deaths are preventable because of SIDS. So that's another conversation in this arena. But let me tell you this, every report, every self-report of the mom, and we just heard this on Saturday for training. We trained together. And it's because, you know, the baby rolled over in the sofa. Or someone rolled over the baby in the bed. I mean, so you've got to imagine, for all the clinicians that are in the room, that's a tender subject. That's a very tender subject. But it's happening in the Antelope Valley. We're not talking about Mississippi. We're not in the Delta states. We're talking about it's happening here in Los Angeles County. And if you want more information around this campaign, this Back to Sleep campaign, I will make sure and give that to you because there's a whole movement to make sure that we're not bed sharing. And even though it's nice to bed share because we want to have, you know, the kangaroo experience with our children, but there is a trade-off because when you're sleepy, you're sleepy. And when you walk away, you walk away. And babies they turn their heads and they're not developed and they can't breathe like we breathe. So with that, Dr. Meredith, I'm going to call you by official name today. I need you to, I need you to get this, the straws. This is what because I want to give you something to let you know about neonates. And I'm jumping ahead of myself, but this just helps to bring together about babies' lungs being developed or underdeveloped. And so I want all of you to these are just the straws that we use for stir our coffee. Okay, I want you to breathe through this straw, but for 60 seconds, just kind of hold your breath. I don't get to do it, but I drink water. Sure.
So by infant mortality, just to be very clear, you mean up until 1 year of life?
Yes. And I'm going to give you a slide that's around that, but I'll say it so you get to breathe again through that.
Well, I couldn't do it.
But to answer your question, and you don't have to hold your breath that long because I'm going somewhere with this, but to answer your question so that I can give you just the basic data around infant mortality is measured at the point of delivery through the first 365 days of the baby's life. So the straw deal, you know what? This is a March of Dimes trick. When a baby is preterm and has a tube, that's how they have to breathe. That's how much energy it takes to breathe for one breath. That's mind-boggling. And they're smaller than we are. So I can't give you all of the intricacies as Angel would around a baby who is 2 or 3 months, and really 4 months, a lot of SIDS deaths take place, but they're not developed. So if they lay on their stomach, you know, and they can't breathe the way we breathe. Their lungs aren't developed. So you look at a preterm baby, they're struggling to breathe. So I just thought that's a bonus. It just kind of came in here at this time. Now, this is the piece that I want to relate to as it looks at race-based data. It's important to look at, remember the service planning? Let's go back. The service planning areas that we looked at, Los Angeles County is broken up into different SPAs. So Pasadena, San Gabriel Valley is SPA 3. Antelope Valley is SPA 1. South LA is SPA 6. So that's the way you look at it. So when you look at the race-based data for infant mortality, and you see this line that goes across, that line is the standard line of saying what our infant deaths are for the county. But then when you look at it racially by SPA, you start to see that in SPA, let me look here, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the colors because I've got on bifocals, I'm sorry, so I can't get too close to here. But if you look at, let's say, SPA 1, which is the deeper blue, you'll see that it's in 2003, it was 9.7 deaths, and in 2007, it was 8.6. And really, in that SPA, it has gone up as high as 21 deaths, infant deaths in SPA 1. So there's a lot of effort that's supported there. But then when you look at SPA 6 in South LA, even though it's not as high as the Antelope Valley, it's still high. One baby that dies is one baby too many. What's more important is looking at the rate here. Now, we compared Asian and African American because African Americans are discriminated against by the way we look. Asians are discriminated against by the way they look. So racism is at the table, but yet when it comes to the infant death rate of African American women and the stress and the racism-induced stress, you don't see the same rates as it relates to our infant deaths. So you'll see for African American across the board for the county of Los Angeles is really high. And then you look at Asian women and you recognize it's not even the same. You can't even compare. And then there's also another piece in here that's not broken out, but I learned the other day that for Hispanic women, it said, well, you know, Hispanic women have high infant mortality rates or infant death rates, and Hispanic women have more babies than African American women do. So when you look at the rates, we have less babies, but our babies die more often. It's very interesting to look at this data because oftentimes people say, well, what about this group? What about that group? It's important to recognize in the African American community, regardless of our background, we are losing our babies. Now, there is data, and I want to cite this, which is not in your list here, but how many have seen the documentary Unnatural Causes? Oh, we need to have a screening. Come on, me and Meredith, let's hold our own. Let's say it. All right.